Inside the secret Fitzgerald probe the Navy doesn't want you to read. Scathing internal Navy probe into the 2017 collision that drowned 7 sailors on the guided missile destroyer Fitzgerald details a far longer list of problems plaguing the vessel, its crew, and superior commands than the service has publicly admitted. What grabbed your attention about this story, Kevin?
The report documents the routine, almost casual violations of standing orders on a Fitzgerald bridge that often lacked skippers and executive officers, even during potentially dangerous voyages at night through busy waterways. The probe exposes how personal distrust led the officer of the deck, Lieutenant Junior Grade Sarah Coppock, to avoid communicating with the destroyer's electronic nerve center, the Combat Information Center, or CIC, while the Fitzgerald tried to cross a shipping superhighway. That's just absolutely extraordinary. When Fort, the investigation team, walked into the trash-strewn CIC in the wake of the disaster, he was hit with the acrid smell of urine. He saw kettlebells on the floor and bottles filled with pee. Some radar controls didn't work, and he soon discovered crew members who didn't know how to use them. Anyway, Fort found a voyage management system that generated more trouble calls than any other key piece of electronic navigational equipment designed to help watchstanders navigate without paper charts. The VMS station in the skipper's quarters was broken, so sailors cannibalized it for parts to help keep the rickety system working. Since 2015, the Fitzgerald had lacked a quartermaster chief petty officer, a crucial leader who helped safely navigate a warship and train its sailors, a shortcoming known to both the destroyer squadron and Navy officials in the United States. Now, this suggests to me that there are deep-seated problems in the United States Navy. That we saw what happened to Lieutenant Junior Grade Coppock, that she was essentially given a slap on the wrist a couple of months ago, that she was not discharged. And again, we have this cult of women in the Navy, well, cult of women everywhere in the United States Armed Forces. But, we can't punish women for derelictions of duty because they're determined to slot women into every conceivable function in the armed forces. They want the armed forces run by women. That's what it comes down to. They have to get them into the officer corps, and they have to keep promoting them all the way to the top. Now, there are no women on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Part of the reason is that when you see these generals who, have all this fruit salad on their chest, like they're Audie Murphy or something, that these women have not been in fighting positions. If they're going to get women to the very top of decision-making, they need to have women in combat leadership roles or, equivalent in the Navy. And this it hasn't been working out. But the fact that it's not working out and is likely never to work out isn't going to stop them. It's not going to make any difference because they have made up their minds. People thought that Mad Dog Mattis was going to do something about this, but it turns out that he is absolutely in love with the idea of women in the armed forces and women at the armed forces at every level and women at the top. There's a companion story from the Navy Times I sent you as well. After 8 months in dry dock, the guided missile destroyer Fitzgerald was ready to leave for sea in early 2017, on paper anyway. Lieutenant Commander Ritarsha Furquan feared the crew of the warship wasn't ready to go out. She figured that up to 70% of them had changed over, and all those green shipmates needed to learn about the vessel and each other. But they'd never get that time. Superiors in the Japan-based 7th Fleet almost immediately began tasking the warship with assignments at sea. Everything Furquan thought vital for the crew to thrive, training, achieving crucial certifications for operating the bustling waters of the Western Pacific, were being jettisoned to make mission. And then on June 17th, 2017, it all unraveled. What I said before, one kind of gets the impression that the people who run the United States military have come to the conclusion that future wars are going to be fought by people sitting in rooms a long way from the gunfire, looking in computer screens and pushing buttons. So perhaps, this scandal with the Fitzgerald and other similar scandals are, not that important in the great scheme of things.
Well, it's interesting that apparently to move up in the armed forces bureaucracy, you have to be in favor of essentially women in combat, women in ever increasing roles of responsibility in the armed forces. That's the only way to get ahead, is to favor these insane policies.
Well, yeah, Jim Webb, who was a Marine, decorated Marine, who was, Secretary of the Navy, later became a senator. His name has been talked about as a replacement for Mattis, although Trump says he's not on the cards. Jim Webb is also a published author, fiction and nonfiction. He's very good. I highly recommend his stuff. What he reported, what was it, 30 years ago? 30 years ago that female sailors on Navy ships, liable to be 50% of them to be pregnant at any one time. I heard from, was it Christopher Check, the Chronicles, who was a captain in the Marines, that when he was serving at the time of the invasion, the first attack on Iraq, was that Desert Storm? Is that what it's called? Yeah. That women in the Navy were openly prostituting themselves on naval vessels.
Right, you've got a captive audience, and you can. Yeah, this is just inevitable. It's crazy to have women on Navy boats, or let alone submarines, or just in the armed forces and anything other than secretarial or nursing or health roles.
Yeah, or training platoons. You have this situation where women, and they can be 4'11", and they can be not very good looking, and they can be thoroughly dumpy. They do have one thing going for them: they're women. And so the soldiers, they break ranks immediately. How can I impress this woman? How can I be the one guy out of 15 or 100 or whatever, who gets to have sex with her?